So, how do you follow up the greatest 2 year stretch that this football program's ever had? How about the best recruiting class in its history? Locked on Illini, let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank y'all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Sports Podcast Network the number one in the world. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. My name is Sonny Verma, your host here at Locked On, where I continue to provide you coverage each and every day. Everything you see, everything you hear is absolutely free. If you want to feel generous, if you want to be nice, please hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. There's a lot to celebrate today. It's about Wednesday late afternoon, and for the most part, it looks like the early signing period for Illinois is just about wrapped up. We're going to have 30 new Illini who've signed on the dotted line and decided that they're going to continue their college careers or start their college careers at the University of Illinois. And I can't tell you just how great of a day today really is, especially if you followed this program for so long. Just to give you an idea, the best recruiting class we've had in recent memory was 22. In 2008, we were ranked 22nd. And it looked like this recruiting class was going to hover anywhere between 22 and 23. But just minutes before this recording started, we got new updated rankings. And now Illinois' composite recruiting ranking is 21. Quite honestly, the best that this program has ever had has been completed right here in the year 2025. And again, if there isn't enough excitement, I understand that this past football season may have not lived up to the dream standards that a lot of people had. But now that the season is over, at least the regular season is over, obviously we're all sitting here waiting to see what's going to happen with the bowl game. Let's all just take a second and realize that this shouldn't just be a blip in the story of Illini football. Bret Bielema has his control on not just things off or on the field, but also off the field. We are losing a lot of good players this year. And sure, this is going to be a rebuilding year. Maybe when we see this recruiting class, it's not a rebuilding year. Maybe it's more so a reloading year. I've talked about on this particular channel, and my everydayers, let me know if you are one in the chat, you can confirm that I like this football team. But I do think that at some point you need to raise the floor a little bit. I understand you've raised the floor considerably from what it was 4 or 5 years ago when Bret Bielema took over, but not just the floor, but even the ceiling, especially compared to the other teams that we've faced on our schedule. You can kind of see elite talent and what it looks like. And I don't think outside maybe one, maybe two guys that anyone on the Illinois side this past year you can class as elite. But how do you bring elite players into your program? Well, first, it starts by winning. And Illinois has done that. For the first time in its history, they've won 18 games in a 2-year period with a chance to make it 19. And that is being followed up with outstanding recruiting classes. Let me show you guys a graphic real quick. Now, for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, you can see a graphic in front of your face. If you're listening to this on audio, by the way, I love you guys who do listen to this on your favorite audio platform. I'll verbalize what we're looking at. What we're looking at is the Big Ten recruiting rankings, at least the composite. Now, this is actually old, at least not quite updated to the 21 ranking that Illinois currently is. This has them listed as 23, but still, I want to go through the whole Big Ten conference very quickly. Let's start from the bottom up. Penn State is at the bottom of the Big Ten. That's right, ranked 144. Nebraska is at 110. Wisconsin is at 69. Let me start there. Ladies and gentlemen, the bottom three in the Big Ten Conference are Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Penn State. 3 programs that Illinois would have dreamed of overtaking 5, 6, 7 years ago. You talk about programs that some of them consider themselves blue bloods. Certainly, a lot of them have had a lot more success than Illinois in the last, I can't even say last 5 years, but at least the last 100 years, seemingly, when you talk about Nebraska, Penn State. When we hired Bret Bielema, it was to turn us into Wisconsin. Take a look at what Wisconsin has turned into since we got Bret Bielema. UCLA is next at 58, Northwestern nationally ranked at 53, then Purdue at 50, Maryland at 46, Rutgers at 42, Michigan State is at 40. Now we took a look at the top half of the Big Ten Conference. Indiana checks in at ranked number 31, Minnesota at 25, Iowa at 24, Illinois at 23, Washington at 13, Michigan at 11, Ohio State at 6, Oregon at 2, and USC had the number 1 recruiting class in the country. So the Big Ten had two of the top two recruiting classes in the country in USC and Oregon. But what I wanted to do for 1 second is to look, there's a lot of momentum I feel like that was lost within the fan base when Illinois lost that game to Wisconsin. And for the most part, I understand why you might feel a certain way. But the ride isn't over yet. And that's what I want to kind of I hope I'm going to do a really good job in instilling into your guys' heads. You take a look at this graph right in front of us. Illinois, over the last X amount of years, is already in the top, I think, 6 or 7 when it comes to wins produced in the Big Ten Conference. And now, this year, we finished 6th in the conference in recruiting. And when you're in the same conference with a USC, an Oregon, an Ohio State, or Michigan, for the most part, those top 4 spots are going to be taken most of the time. In fact, Penn State is usually up there as well. They are obviously, they become a laughing stock at this point with their whole head coach search. But Illinois, despite not having the resources maybe that other programs might have, well, the success on the field is converting to success off the field. Young kids who grew up in Illinois, watching Illinois, at my age, you just assumed that was a very bad football program. And if you were any good at football, you could not wait to get out of state. That's no longer the case anymore. Kids who've been in high school for the last 5, 6, 7 years, well, Illinois is a very competitive program. And so much so that they can compete with other Big Ten teams. In fact, take a look at number 1 on this list, USC. Can anyone raise their hands if you can name a team that USC lost to this year? That's right. It's Illinois. It's not always about the 5 stars. I understand that Illinois didn't get any 5 stars this year, and some detractors are pointing that out. But you're still raising the level of talent on this Illinois team, and that's all you want to do each and every year. I do think ultimately we have the right people in charge that are going to be able to mold that talent and slowly take baby steps and go up the ladder of the Big Ten Conference. Sure, it may not happen in a season like it may have with another certain Big Ten team to our east, but still, you're talking about a program that's still making positive growth. And that's kind of what you want right now. Sure, there's going to be a lot of new faces next year, and Illinois may not make it to 10 wins. They may not even make it to 8 wins, but it's going to be a brand new roster, a brand new talented roster, as you can see. And maybe that's going to be the next fun step in the process, to see these younger guys who are a lot better than the younger guys we've recruited in the past, seeing them grow, mature, and turn into all Big Ten performers. Either way, right now, I'll say it again, and you know what? If you're my everydayer, you know what I'm about to say. It is a great time to be an Illini. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories. Because Aura isn't just an average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. For someone like my kid's grandma who has grandkids on different parts of the country, this is the perfect type of gift for her to sit back, take a look over at her grandkids growing up and not missing a moment. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named number 1 by Wirecutter by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com, promo code college. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. And welcome back. Okay, so now you're probably curious. All right, Sonny, come on, do your work. Give me an idea of who made up this top 21 class. All right, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a nice big swig of water and try to give you about 20 seconds each of every single player in this recruiting class. Let me know in the comment section which one's your favorite. I'm going to start on that right after. All right, again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my screen. All I've got is the On3 industry rankings up. If you're on listening to this on audio, I'm going to try to do my best to describe exactly what I'm doing. Right now, I'm scrolling down to number 21. So just so you guys know that I wasn't lying, Illinois is indeed the number 21st ranked recruiting class in the country. And I'm going to be pulling up player profiles and letting you know what notes I jotted down for each and every player. I guess the way Rivals does it, they start from the top. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so the top starts with Nick Hankins Jr., who, I think is pretty safe to say is the top recruit in the class. 4-star, ranked. They gave him a 93.28 ranking, ranked 120th nationally, one of the top cornerbacks in the country. And let me tell you, folks, this was a kid that committed to Illinois relatively early. But he's the kind of prospect that multi-year starter, a kid that a lot of other SEC programs, a lot of other Big Ten programs, despite his commitment to the Illini, were still very much in the ear of. There was never a moment where I was super 100% confident that he was going to come to Champaign. And not that I had any reason not to be, but mainly because I knew the caliber of teams that were recruiting him. And yet Nick never wavered on his commitment to the Illini. And it's just a huge get for Bret Bielema, not just because of what his ratings look like. But again, you're talking about one of the top players in the entire state. Rivals has him as number 3. I know other rankings out there have him as a top player in Illinois. Nick Hankins is going to be an absolute star. And I'm very confident saying that he's not going to, he may be one of those day one starters that Bret Bielema alluded to earlier this week when it comes to this class. But certainly, if not this year, maybe by the end of the next season or by his sophomore year and junior year for sure. And then beyond that, who knows? He might just have some pro aspiration. And then we go from potential future starter to a kid who I think could probably go ahead and start this year. I mean, he was the number 1 cornerback JUCO in the country for a reason. And that, of course, is Jakwon Morris, out of Mississippi, 6'1", 175 pounds. He was a kid who committed to USC originally, but that did not deter Illinois. Bret Bielema and Corey Parker in particular were very aggressive in their pursuit of Jakwon, who was well aware that if he decided to ultimately take a campus visit to Illinois, that USC has a policy that they would rescind their scholarship offer. But Morris, I think at that point, knew which coaching staff he wanted to play for. He decided to visit and have an official visit in Champaign, and he committed shortly thereafter. And Jakwon, again, is just a kid who I think he's got the size and the twitches to be able to compete with Big Ten wide receivers. Let's be honest, Illinois is going to lose a lot when it comes to the secondary. We know Torrey Cox Jr. is going to be gone. Possibly Xavier Scott's going to be gone. We don't quite know his situation. While we do have some freshman talent coming in, we do need a little bit of maturity in the defensive backfield. And I think Jakwon Morris is going to be bringing exactly that. And I think he can easily be a guy you see starting on the first game of the season next year. Next up from Chicago, from Morgan Park, that's right, IO country. And Bret Bielema did bring that up, talking about how much of an impact that IO had for Brad Underwood in the basketball program, that he thinks that Nazir is cut from the same cloth and could have the same type of impact on the football side. And of course, I'm talking about Nazir Rankin, just about 5'11" and a half. It's listed here, 167 pounds. Not the biggest guy, but I'm telling you, you put his name into Google, and the first adjective that continues to just pop up everywhere is dynamic. This kid is dynamic. He's a basketball player who's actually going to be able to play basketball for the basketball team as well. How that's going to work out, I have no idea, but that's Bret Bielema and Brad Underwood's job to figure out. Nazir was mentioned as being able to play both offense and defense, whether it's a wide receiver or a secondary role. I'm quite honestly, I don't know which side he's going to play on. To me, I think wide receiver is probably a little bit better suited. He's just got that really small, twitchy type of speed that I think he can be a star in the Big Ten Conference. But again, I don't get the big bucks to figure that stuff out. That's what the coaching staff is all about. But Nazir, again, just a huge win out of the city of Chicago that Bret Bielema can certainly hang his hat on. And next up, we have the big surprise, maybe not so much of a surprise if you watched my show late Tuesday evening, and that's Micah Smith from Vero Beach, Florida, 6'5.5", 320 pounds. Micah is a 4-star, ranked the 274th recruit in the country, the 21st when it comes to interior offensive linemen. Micah was committed to UCLA, and then he committed to them in, I believe, June. Obviously, then UCLA got off to an 0-3 start. They fired their coach, and Illinois, being who they are, continued to maintain that relationship with Micah, and they got a good one. There's no other way to put it. We know that Illinois is going to lose 4 out of 5 starters this upcoming season when it comes to the offensive line, and I'm not saying that Micah is a day one starter, because certainly when it comes to the offensive line, it's a very difficult transition from jumping from high school to college in one summer. But he certainly has a size to do it. When you're talking about just a hair under 6'6", 320 pounds, Micah has NFL potential. He's a kid who could be the anchor of this offensive line for the next couple of years. Where they're going to start him, again, guard or tackle, I think they'll probably figure out in spring workouts and off-season workouts and whatnot. But Micah is a huge grab, arguably the best grab that we had in the cycle, and one of the most important, because you've heard me say it on the show. Bret Bielema is known for developing offensive linemen. Well, he has in his past stops at both Wisconsin and at Arkansas. It's about time that we get a prep here that he can show that he can develop and get ready for the next level. Micah Smith absolutely has the capabilities of playing on Sundays at some point in his life. Now, it's Bret's job to prove that he can still do it with prep players, and it's not just the JUCO players that he has get ready for NFL. And speaking of offensive line, I just got done talking about Micah Smith possibly being a multi-year starter in the future. TJ Taylor, a JUCO that they brought, I believe he was ranked number 2 when it comes to JUCO offensive linemen, 6'6", 300 pounds. Out of California. This is a kid who could be a starter on day one. In fact, I expect him to be a starter at tackle at one of the spots. Ranked 3-star, 90.30 ranking, as you can see. TJ is just one of those guys where Bret Bielema liked his tape immediately. And this was a guy that once he was available, they knew they were going to go very aggressively after, and they were able to land him. Again, this guy, they project him to be a starter this upcoming season. What happens once these off-season workouts happens, we'll see. But TJ, I think, is a guy that you're going to see instilled, at least in the next couple seasons, as one of our anchors of the offensive line. And we are not done talking offensive linemen yet. And notice this is all ranked in order of recruiting ranking. And so Illinois can obviously, you can tell that they were very aggressive when it comes to replacing that offensive line. Next up, we have Kai Pritchard from New Jersey. I think he was the 3rd ranked recruit out of the state of New Jersey, 6'4.5", 280 pounds. Kai is one of the most highly ranked prep offensive linemen that Bret Bielema has ever had. Again, I'll say it. It's really hard for a freshman to just come in, jump from high school to being a freshman in college football and be a starter. But Kai is simply one of those really talented players that I think maybe halfway through his freshman year, or maybe early on in his sophomore year, could be a starter for this football team. Again, Bret Bielema, this coaching staff really, really honed in on the offensive line issues to try to fix whatever was happening the last X amount of years, in particular at the beginning of the games. Obviously, they've recognized that there's a problem, and now they're trying to address it. Next up, we have a fun story. Jacob Eberhardt, of course, everyone knows of his father, who also played for Illinois, I believe in the 90s. Well, Jacob was a kid, another one whose recruiting process I wasn't comfortable with until I saw that he officially signed. He picked Illinois over Oklahoma, and I believe also Missouri. This was just a player that is highly coveted, and if you look at his tape, you can understand why. 6'1", about 210 pounds. Jacob is a player who I think will probably end up playing on the defensive side, but Bret did mention that he might have some offensive snaps, whether he plays linebacker like he did in high school, or he plays in the secondary, which is probably where I would play him. I think he could be a very solid safety. And again, a guy who's absolutely talented enough to play on Sundays at some point in his life. But hopefully, at least for the short term, he's going to be a long-time starter for the orange and blue. Next up, we have Cam Thomas out of Ohio, about 6 foot, 200 pounds. He's a linebacker, ranked 88.67, another 3-star. This was a recruitment that Illinois had to win. They beat Michigan, Oregon, Indiana. I remember those 3 particularly involved. Cam, the best way for me to describe him is he reminds me of what defenses looked under the Ryan Walters era, if you know what I mean. Someone who's just playing downhill, who seems to be just super aggressive. Now, Devin Witherspoon, of course, is an exaggerated version. That kid's a freak. But you know what I'm talking about, just an attacking style. If you watch Cam Thomas tape, that's exactly what you kind of get a resemblance of. All right, that's 8 down. We got about 22 more to go. We'll get to the rest of them right after this. NFL Sundays are moving fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum, every swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. Maybe a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump right into the moment. Live spreads and money lines are adjusting very quickly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right. Originally, of course, I said I was going to spend about 15 to 20 seconds on each player, and I ended up spending about a minute and a half on each player. So I'm running a little long. I'll try to make these a little bit quicker, but I do want to get to each and every one of these players because I'm very excited about their futures with the Illini. Next up, I'll go to Parker Krim. Parker is a guy who I think has long-term future on Terrence Jameson's defensive line. He's going to have to get a little bit bigger. Right now, he's only sitting at 6'2". He says 6'2.5" here, 240 pounds. Ranked as a 3-star. Parker, again, I think he's got to bulk up a little bit, but he's a guy that I think Terrence Jameson ultimately likes the upside of and could maybe by the time at the end of his sophomore year or early junior year be a mainstay on that defensive line. And next up, we have Devon Grant, 6'3", 210 pounds, out of DeKalb, Illinois. Devon Grant reminds me of my flag player from this past year. If you recall, Justin Bowick, just a big guy who is very explosive and he makes plays. How ready he's going to be right away, I don't think it's going to be necessary, especially with how deep our wide receiver room is in Illinois. But he was one of the first guys in state to commit to Bret Bielema. So I think he kind of helped with the in-state momentum. Devon is a kid who I think Illini fans are really going to enjoy watching a couple years down the line just because of his explosive ability. Again, 6'3" listed here on Rivals. I've also seen him listed as 6'4". Just a big target that the future quarterback of Illinois is going to enjoy throwing the ball to. Next up, we have another defensive back, Almiron Thomas, out of Florida. This was an Aaron Henry recruit, 6'1", 165 pounds. So you love that sort of size in your secondary. This is a kid who, quite honestly, he has great length, as I mentioned, but also really good instincts. I don't think he's going to be playing much very early, but once he continues to fill out his frame a little bit, I think he can be an important part about the defensive secondary for Illinois. Next up, we have another flip, and that's Javari Barnett. Javari Barnett, if you recall, a couple months ago committed to the Illini, then went to Tuscaloosa and also ultimately flipped to Alabama. But Thad Ward, Bret Bielema, they continued there to maintain a relationship with Javari. And when it came to putting the pen to paper, Javari ultimately decided he wanted to come to Champaign to play college football. Javari is a player who reminds me of the old school running backs in the sense where just a workhorse. He got injured last season, so he didn't quite finish the full season. I think a lot of teams backed off on him then. But I mean, Javari, obviously, he had interest from Alabama. He was committed there for a while, but Georgia was after him. If you really want a more in-depth scouting report, do a search of Locked On Illini when Javari Barnett committed. He's a running back I really like. Especially when you see our team now, you see thunder and lightning, right? You have Thunder and Caden Fagan, a big, powerful running back. Then you have smaller guys like Khalil Valentine who are more twitchy. And then you have, a tweener like Aiden Lawfrey. Javari Barnett is simply one of those old school type of running backs who can do all of it. And so, whether he's fully healthy or not, that's what I think we're going to find out. But I think Barnett is an excellent addition to the running backs room. We know Bret Bielema likes big boys up front, and Casey Taman is certainly one of them. 6'7", 300 pounds. Casey also plays basketball. He's actually relatively new to the sport of football, so it's going to be interesting to watch his development. But he chose Illinois over offers from Iowa, Nebraska, Northwestern, amongst others, if I recall. Yeah, there you go. Casey's certainly a project, but one of those really, really high upside projects that could really work out for Bart Miller and Bret Bielema. Next up, we have Tony Balanganai. I hope I said that right. Well, even if I didn't, I better learn how to say it because I think he's one of my favorite players in this class. And if you want to know why, please go watch his tape. 6'4", 260 pounds. He was a former offensive lineman who, once he switched to the defensive line, basically just caused havoc everywhere he goes. Out of Palatine, Illinois, he's a guy who I think, for his size, the amount of mobility he has, and clearly the strength that he displays, I think that he has a lot of upside when it comes to Terrence Jamison and being in the defensive line. Look, say what you will about Jamison's recruiting. When it comes to actually getting his hands on talent, we've seen it with Newton. We've seen it with Randolph. Jamison can coach guys up, and I'm really excited to see what kind of coaching up he can do with Tony, because I think Tony can be an absolute stud down the road. Next up, we have Caden Bennett from Connecticut, 6'1", 245 pounds. He plays edge, again, ranked as a 3-star. Caden, I think he's a little rougher, but I do like the fact that he has a wrestling background. I don't think we're going to see much of Caden for a year, maybe even 2 years, but he's one of those guys who has the raw athletic traits to play on edge at some point for this Illini football team. And next up, we have Kenyon Alston out of Florida, someone who is very close to Michael Clayton, who's the quarterback in this class. 6'2", 172 pounds. He's a guy who Justin Stepp was very aggressively pursuing. And so if Justin trusts Kenyon, then you kind of have to just trust his judgment on this one. Kenyon and Michael Clayton, as I mentioned, are very close. They both went to the Citrus Bowl together. They both got to see Illinois defeat South Carolina last January. And so this is why I say, bowl games count. All these games matter. And Kenyon's not necessarily a guy who I think is going to play very early, but he's bought into this Illinois program, and I'm really glad to get his commitment. Next up, we have Isaiah Williams, a name that's grown very popular when it comes to Illinois football. He's out of Texas, 6'1", 180 pounds. Isaiah is an Aaron Henry guy. Aaron Henry really likes Williams' game. Probably a future safety on this football team. Again, just really aggressive. And if you watch his tape, this guy really likes to tackle guys and be very physical. So he'll probably play on special teams early in his career, and then maybe depending on the way he develops, he could have a more prominent role on the defensive side. Next up, we have Jalen Stewart out of Texas. Obviously, Illinois continues to grow its footprint in Texas. 6'3", 230 pounds. Pure athlete. I don't know how else to describe this. If you watch his tape, 3-star, ranked 87.10. He's an edge player, and at this point, we've seen the success of Gabe this past season in the development. Right now, you want to recruit as many guys that maybe you can mold and find a gem. And I think Jalen could be one of those guys when it comes to his ultimate development. I don't know. I think I would rank him a little bit more of a project than some of the other guys I've mentioned, but the guy's feisty. And if you watch his tape, I think you're going to agree with me. Speaking of Illinois developing footprints in states, of course, Florida, and here comes another one, Tony Williams, about 5'10.5" and 250 pounds. 215 pounds. Tony's, again, another linebacker who he was actually, I believe, a sprinter, at least track and field in high school, if I recall correctly. He's one of those guys who won't get run past by opposing running backs or wide receivers. He's a guy who can chase them down, and he enjoys doing so. Another kid who really enjoys being in the open field and making the tackle if he's given the opportunity. Micah Matalu, if you watched my show on Tuesday, was a guy who I predicted would not sign with the Illini, but I'm certainly glad to be wrong in this case. Micah was the number 1 ranked interior offensive lineman when it comes to JUCOs, and at 6'4", 341 pounds, again, you talk about a guy who's probably ready to start day one for the Illini next year. Micah is a kid who I thought, again, was going to flip to BYU or maybe Utah, but he trusts Bret Bielema's plan into developing him to eventually play on NFL on Sundays at some point. So Micah, welcome aboard. And now we have King Liggins out of Brother Rice in Chicago, 6'3", 255 pounds. Another guy that Terrence Jameson can't wait to get his eyes on. He has a very physical tape. And then when I did a little research and saw that he wrestled, I was like, okay, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. So again, another player I'm looking forward to seeing Terrence Jameson continue to try to develop. Next up, we have Jacob Alexander, another in-state win for Bret Bielema and his coaching staff. I don't think Jacob is nearly developed enough to have much of an impact his first couple of years, but at 6'4", 226 pounds, give him a couple of years in the weight room with Tank Wright. I think Jacob has intriguing potential, and he could be an edge to keep an eye out, maybe his junior year. Next up, we have Landon Von Segern, a kid that we beat over, I believe, Kansas State, Iowa. Kansas is the one I was actually thinking about. Bart Miller likes this guy. He's got the size, 6'3", 290 pounds. Plays, I keep saying the same thing, but I think it's because it's on purpose. He's got a nasty streak, a mean streak. And so I think it's going to be a while before we see him. He played tackle in high school. I think ultimately he's probably going to move to a guard position at this next level, but another guy to keep an eye on. I think collectively as a fan base, we all know that this Illinois football team was lacking speed. Well, linebacker recruit Caden Cobbs will provide that speed. Another kid who was in track. He's from Texas, 6'1", 190 pounds. Illinois beat out Nebraska and a couple of Big 12 teams to get his services. So another guy who hopefully is going to really raise the level of athlete that you see on the field for the Illini. Stop me if you've heard this before, but Kingston Shaw really liked what he saw when he went to the Illinois Citrus Bowl game against South Carolina. An edge, 6'3", 235 pounds. Kingston is another kid who has pretty decent size. Again, 6'3", 235 pounds. He hasn't played defensive end for very long, so it'll be interesting to see where he fits in on whether it's the defensive line or edge, wherever this staff places him. But you like the size and you like the potential on Kingston. Next up, we have Will Vala out of Downers Grove, Illinois, 6'3", 225 pounds. I will say, not just because of his size, but because of just what Illinois is looking for. Obviously, Illinois had 2 high priority in-state tight end prospects, and while they weren't able to land those 2 guys, they don't think they settled with Will. They think Will absolutely has a future with this football team, and it's a position that was placed on high priority for Bret Bielema and the staff, and they think that they got a really good one in Will. Next up, we have a quarterback, Michael Clayton, who I believe was the first one to commit, if my memory serves correctly. Michael is a guy who has a really close relationship with Barry Lunny Jr., and he trusts Barry Lunny Jr., and Barry really likes what he sees in Clayton. Obviously, Trey Petty announced that he's going to be entering the transfer portal, and a lot of that has to do with the young talent that seems to be assembling in Champaign when it comes to that quarterback room. And I think Michael Clayton is one of those guys to kind of sit back, keep an eye on, and see what happens in a couple of years. Nelson Wheeler is 5'9" and 200 pounds. He's a running back out of Nebraska. If you recall, Wheeler was kind of the replacement, I guess, when Barnett decided to flip over to Alabama. But Wheeler is also, despite Barnett coming back, still going to be committed to the Illini in this class. And I'm very glad to hear that. Nelson is a home run hitter. I don't know how else to describe it. Very fast, super fast. A guy who can, when given the ball, can make big plays for you. Have you ever seen a punter that can kick with both legs? Well, you're about to. Jack Gray, a punter out of Australia. Bret Bielema mentioned that he's only had 2 that he's ever coached, but it certainly opens the door for different sort of possibilities. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very intrigued to see what that looks like on the football field. And finally, we have Maurice Smith, who is a transfer. Quite honestly, I did not watch much tape of Maurice. I saw maybe a couple minutes right before I started recording. I think it's fair to mention that he's the brother of Micah Smith, the offensive line, who I discussed earlier, the 4-star that switched over from UCLA. Now, whether this recruitment was, there's a connection to that, I'll let you decide for yourself. But again, Maurice Smith is a quarterback out of Florida, 6'3", 220 pounds. All right, there you have it. 30 players, 30 quick rundown. Some quicker than others, some longer than others. I apologize for that. Let me know who you think is your favorite player in this class. I told you which guys I've got my eye on. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, I hope you appreciated this. We'll be talking more of this class later on this week. We're also going to be previewing men's basketball plays Tennessee, and also maybe a Ty Rogers update in the near future. Make sure you don't miss a thing by subscribing to this channel. Make sure you like this video on your way out. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.